You know that feeling, right? You're on a project and it feels like you're fighting a hydra. Every time you solve one problem, two more pop up. It's just chaos. Well, that's what happens when you don't have a clear scope. Today, we're going to tackle the single most important process for preventing that chaos: plan scope management. This isn't just paperwork, it's literally the blueprint for your project's success. But before we can build that blueprint, we've got to talk about the villain of our story, the one force that's always lurking, trying to sabotage everything. We're talking about scope creep. It's the silent killer of projects, that slow poison of, hey, can you just add this one little thing? And before you know it, your project is completely off the rails. I mean, we've all been there, haven't we? That quick favor that ends up costing you a week, or that tiny tweak that explodes into a major rework. Now, the answer isn't just learning to say no all the time. The real secret is having a system, a plan for dealing with these things before they even come up. So, how do we build that system?
All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll really get to know our enemy, that project chaos. Then, we'll build the blueprint for scope. We'll look at the key inputs you'll need, the strategic toolkit you'll use to build the plan, and then the actual management plans you'll walk away with. And finally, we'll tie it all back to achieving project success. Let's dive in.
All right, first things first, we have to really understand the enemy we're dealing with here. We're taming project chaos. Look, this isn't just some small annoyance. Scope creep is the #1 reason projects go completely off the rails. We're talking blown budgets, missed deadlines, and a team that's just burned out, chasing a finish line that keeps moving further away. This is why nailing down your scope isn't just part of the job, it is the job. It's the key to everything. So if that's the enemy, what's our weapon? Well, this is where we introduce the solution, the blueprint for scope. The solution is this process: plan scope management. And here's the key thing to get your head around. We're not actually defining the project's scope right now. Not yet. What we're doing is creating the plan for how we will define, validate, and control the scope later on. It's like writing the constitution for your project. You're setting up the laws and procedures before you start building the country. And to write that constitution, we have to be crystal clear on two different things that people mix up all the time: product scope and project scope. Think of it like this. Product scope is what you're building, the finished car with all its features and functions. Project scope is how you're going to build it, all the work, the tasks, the processes required to design, assemble, and test that car. Our plan has to govern both. Okay, so every great plan starts with great ingredients, right? You can't just make this stuff up. So let's talk about gathering your key inputs. This is the foundation of your entire plan. Input #1 is your project charter. This is the birth certificate of your project. It's what gives you the authority to even start. And it gives you those high-level boundaries. If your charter just says something vague like improve the user experience, you're already in trouble. It needs to give you clear guardrails from the very beginning. Next up, you're not starting from scratch. You're looking at your overall project management plan, specifically some of the existing pieces. Think about it. Your quality management plan sets the standard for done, which directly impacts scope. And maybe most importantly, what's your development approach? Are you in a rigid waterfall world where scope is fixed? Or an agile one where scope is meant to change? Your scope plan has to reflect that reality. And of course, no project exists in a vacuum. You have to look at what are called enterprise environmental factors. This is just a fancy way of saying, what's the world you're operating in? Is your company culture super bureaucratic, or is it more of a get it done kind of place? What's the marketplace look like? These external forces will absolutely shape what's possible for your project. And finally, the fourth input, please do not reinvent the wheel. Your company has done this before. Look at your organizational process assets. These are your company's templates, its policies, and maybe most importantly, its lessons learned documents from past projects. Go find the project that failed spectacularly. That's where the real gold is. Learn from their mistakes so you don't have to repeat them. Okay, you've got all your raw ingredients. Now it's time to start cooking. Let's talk about the strategic toolkit. This is how you're actually going to build the plan. The first, and honestly the most important tool in your kit, is expert judgment. This just means talking to people who know more than you. Seriously, find the people in your organization who have done this before. Buy them a coffee, pick their brain. Their experience is going to help you avoid landmines you don't even see coming. Next, we have alternatives analysis. This is where you put on your strategy consultant hat. You don't just do things the way they've always been done. You actually stop and think about your options. For example,
how are we going to collect requirements? We could do workshops. We could do interviews. We could build a prototype. You identify your options, you evaluate them, and you deliberately select the best method for this specific project.
And where does this all happen? In meetings. I know, nobody likes meetings. But these aren't your boring weekly status updates. These are focused, collaborative workshops. You get the project sponsor, key team members, and maybe a few of those experts in a room, and you hash this out together. The goal is simple. Walk out with a plan that everyone has agreed to. That buy-in is absolutely critical.
So, after you've used those tools on your inputs, what do you actually get? Well, you get two critical outputs. These are the documents you've been working toward, the ones that are going to guide you through the rest of the project. Let's look at what they are.
The first output is, no surprise, the scope management plan. This is your rulebook. It defines exactly how you're going to do things. How will you create the detailed scope statement? How will you break that down into a work breakdown structure? How will you approve and maintain that baseline? And maybe most importantly, how will you get formal sign-off on deliverables so they don't drag on forever? It's all defined right here. And the second critical output is your requirements management plan. This gets even more specific. It's the plan for the plan, if you will. How are we going to track requirements? How will we handle changes? What's our prioritization process going to be? And crucially, how will we trace every single requirement back to its source to make sure it's actually adding value? This plan stops those gold-plating features dead in their tracks.
Okay, so you've done all this planning. You've got these two big, beautiful documents. So what? What's the real payoff here? Let's talk about how this plan leads to project success. Here's the bottom line. A good scope plan completely flips the script. You go from being a victim of the project, just reacting to every fire that pops up, to being the leader who sets the rules of engagement. You're not just playing the game anymore, you're defining how the game is played. That's real control. So, let's wrap this up with the key takeaways. Number 1, scope creep is the enemy, always. Number 2, a scope management plan is your rulebook for fighting it. 3, the process is simple: inputs, tools, and outputs. And finally, what this all gives you is guidance, direction, and real, tangible control over your project. So your plan is finally complete. You're ready to go. But what happens on Tuesday morning when your biggest stakeholder walks up to your desk with a brilliant new idea that's going to change everything? Your plan is your defense, but how you handle that request in the moment, well, that's a whole other story.